Welcome back. We've got Ayo Olukontin here with us. He is a professor of political science to weigh in on that matter. Good morning, sir, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well,
nice to see you again.
Having listened to the mover of that motion and the minister about this social media bill, what do you think?
Well, I think they should just leave it alone. I know it's a global debate, as he mentioned. I mean, Europe is also agog with social media bills, and some countries in Asia that were mentioned. Of course, China already took preemptive steps. They're not even at that level. They're not talking of regulation. I mean, they simply control the waves. However, you will observe that in the European countries, this is coming as a response to specific threats and events. It is not coming as an umbrella move to rein in a long-dreaded enemy.
Is that the way you think this one is playing?
Well, yes, I think so. I think there's an exaggerated rhetoric about it. There's sensationalism about it. And I don't really see the national... For example, in France, it was after a revelation that some foreign country had tried to meddle in the 2007 elections, that this was put on the national banner. And as specific, if you look at the wording in France, is the period of the elections that they are concerned about. It's not putting the social media or some other kind of media under the thumb. Besides, you will note that this is not the first time they are bringing this on. It was on 2 earlier times in the Fourth Republic. And because of public outrage, they had to drop it. Now it's resurfaced. My thinking is that, as some lawyers have told us, that there are enough laws on the statute book to deal with errant social media. I don't minimize the errancy in the social media, the aberrations in the social media. No, I don't. But I don't think another muscle. We already have enough muscle, against the media, in my opinion. So I don't think we need another iron fist to rein in social media.
You think this is against the media?
I think so. I think that...
How is it?
Well, it's representative. In this case, as I say, in the European countries, it's coming as specific responses to certain events, that eventuated. Here is, to me, is characteristic of the power of the state versus the response of civil society. The African state is already so powerful. And as writers like Achille Mbembe has mentioned, often cruel and despotic. The balance is often against the people, against resistance, against speaking out. Okay? Unlike in the U.S., where because of the First Amendment, some say it's an outlier, but because of the First Amendment, nobody just messes up with the media, whether the social media or the conventional media.
But,
yes.
What the minister said, and which, of course, the other man has also said, is that, this is a response. You said that, it's a response in those European countries who are responding to something. It's the same position that the minister has been holding. It's a response to some of the things that they have also observed that threatens national security. You don't think it's...
like I say, I think it's exaggerated. Just because somebody posts a picture of some wedding that never took place and so on, so you now rise up in arms against the social media. I think the response is exaggerated. And as I said, we must put it in the context of earlier abortive attempts to rein in the social media. I think it was 2015. That one died in 2016. And it was then resurrected under the Saraki-led Senate. And it died again, I believe, was it last year? So this is the third attempt to rein in the social media. But in my opinion, I don't think the threats are at a level where you cannot use the conventional laws to deal with it. Nobody denies the issues in social media. No, you can't deny it. But I'm saying that the conventional laws are already strong enough to deal with it. Have they been tested? I don't think they've been tested enough.
Yeah, but if you also For instance, it's been done 3 times. This particular one now, they appear determined to go through with it. But whether or not they do, we'll see how that eventually pans out on the floor of the Senate. And I think in this one, it has to be both the Senate and the National Assembly. But since you've heard the lawmaker, the senator who moved that motion, what kind of response, how do you see this playing out both on the floor? We haven't even heard anything about this in the House of Reps. What do you see happening, given the way the first 2 played out?
Well, in my opinion, if there's enough resistance to it from civil society, it will die like the 2 others died. If people keep quiet, of course there'll be a public hearing. If people keep quiet about it and they think it's just another jolly official game, then of course it will go through and then we'll have ourselves to blame for it.
All right. I also just looking at those specific provisions, because how do you then suggest they deal with those specific concerns that they have raised? How should they approach it?
The law. The law. All I'm saying, and as some senior lawyers have argued, is that there are enough laws on our statute book to deal with the problems.
But how do we test? Excuse me. How do we test those laws that are being talked about when because, as you know, and as many lawyers have said, anyone can choose to interpret the law in any which way they want. So there hasn't been any time that anyone said, okay, as a result of this occurrence, I'm going to test this law and take the fellow to court. That hasn't happened. Why do you think that law hasn't been tested?
I believe I had the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, narrate an incident in which he took somebody to court over some publication in the social media. No, he threatened to, actually. He hadn't actually done it. And as a result of his threat to do it, the person retracted the story, and they made what they call a settlement out of court. So his argument then is that it's because nobody is testing the limits of what we have now that they think we need another law. Broadly, you know that in Nigeria we tend to solve every problem by making another law. We've made several constitutions. The Americans have just made one with few amendments since their independence in 1776. We've made several constitutions. I don't think any of them have seriously worked. The point I'm making is that I don't even think the problem will be solved by making yet another law, And I'm saying that making yet another law puts it in the same position as other efforts of state to rein in, with some triumphalism, even some hidden vengeance against those bad boys. I see an element of that, and I don't think this is the right attitude. In the other countries that were mentioned, at least in the European countries, and as I say, there were civilized responses, they were measured. They had to even weigh it against free expression, which is a preeminent demand, in those countries. So, but here, people are going about it, they are citing all kinds of cases, some apply, some don't even apply. So, my opinion is that as civil society did before, in the 2 previous times, they should just kick against this and let it go.
And you think it's going to go the way of others?
I don't know. I'm not a prophet. All I'm saying is that if there's enough resistance against it, the 2 houses, when it gets to the House of Representatives, would be obliged to drop it.
Let's take a little more, maybe historical perspective on what has transpired previously, and we'll come back to this conversation in a moment. Have a look at this.
It is the annual conference of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, an event which is to serve as a catalyst for combating societal anomalies. This year, the focus is on extremism and how it is a threat to national unity, an issue which the National Broadcasting Commission takes very seriously.
This is also key to fulfilling one of the political objectives of broadcasting as contained in the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, which is to inculcate in the people the spirit of tolerance of all shades of opinion.
Nigeria, for over a decade, has had to bear the impact of violent extremism, and the Chairman House Committee on Information and National Orientation counts the cost.
The extremism being faced by Nigeria in the last few years has cost us so many things in terms of human, and material loss.
The lecture looks at preventive measures in combating extremism.
But violent extremism frequently lay claims to religious authorities as a means of asserting moral and spiritual certitude in a commonly understood discourse to legitimize their commitment to violence. The less ideological inclined can be drafted by social, financial, material inducement offered by violent extremist organizations.
As part of efforts to combat extremism, the Minister of Information and Culture says the regulations on extremism must include extremism on social media.
Yes, you heard me well. We are going to inject sanity into the social media space. With some extremists have turned into a platform for disseminating fake news and hate speech, which, like I said, are dangerous tools in the hands of extremists.
And may God bless Nigeria.
The fear with combating extremism, especially in the media, is that free speech will be stifled in the process. The Nigerian government say they know where to draw the line, and the Nigerian people will just have to trust them. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Well, Professor Femi Otubanjo has since joined us. He is a public policy analyst as well as a professor of political science as well. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, about the social media bill,
yes,
the hue and cry continues. This morning on the front pages, Nigerian Guild of Editors also speaking up. They don't think it's a good idea. What do you think?
Well, of course, I share their sentiments. It's not a good idea. The signal you are giving is that of intolerance. Nigeria has enough laws to deal with libel, defamation, sedition, everything that of every media infraction is already covered by our laws. So why do you need to make special laws? I agree entirely that social media can be reckless. In fact, it's a reckless platform generally. People say all kinds of things. You saw the case of the wedding ceremony that never was, created by some mind, and they're using the freedom of the social media to project it, to propagate it. So they need to curtail some of the excesses. But it's not with a special law.
But what will it be with?
With the laws that we have, if you can. All right. The reality is that you are looking for new ways of identifying those who infract the law. Mm-hmm. That's what you are looking for. How do you identify the person who generated that story about the wedding? That's what you should be looking for. More sophisticated ways of identifying culprits, not making new laws. New laws suggest to us that you are intolerant and you are at the periphery of authoritarianism and autocracy. You want to be picking on those, because what government is worried is about criticism, and criticism is not necessarily a crime. I mean, what is a crime is if you peddle. But the government actually say that they are worried about criticism, so that's how it comes across to you. That's authoritarianism, and that's not what we have. We have a democracy.
You said you agree, sir, that the social media is reckless.
It is reckless. It can be reckless. It can peddle all kinds of things. Somebody sent something to me and listed about 5 universities in Daura. None of those universities exist in Daura. I mean, if you said that, you are inciting the public against the president that is putting, and that the line between Matadi or whatever, there's only between Matadi and Daura. Can you imagine a rail line between two towns only? So you find such recklessness heading on the social media.
That as some significant reason for governments to say, look, let's at least find a way to nip this in the bud.
You can't nip it in the bud. You can't nip freedom of speech in the bud. Social media gives it's a new age.
You also agree that freedom of speech for somebody stops where it begins to infringe on someone else's.
Yeah, it does. But, when you have the anonymity of social media, it does not.
But
you see, the reality is that every age has information revolution. The printing press gave rise to Martin Luther.
But that anonymity,
yes.
What laws deal with that anonymity? Because in traditional media,
yes,
that anonymity doesn't really exist to that extent.
Yes.
But in this particular case, where you could just have a pseudonym, you have a pseudo ID, and then if you publish, difficult to track you down.
Yeah.
So what laws deal with
So
that?
that's the foolishness of the law. If you cannot track down the culprit, why do you have a law for it? What you need, most of these social media publications are on established networks, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and so on. You can track those ones. And those who manage those platforms tend to be careful. So if you have somebody who wants to publish outrageous things, unless the manager of the platform is responsible, then you can always control it at that level. I mean, I'm on many platforms. Sometimes somebody wants to introduce pornography, and they will put an X on it. And if you try it again, you are off the platform. So it is not. If you really want a law that will work, you must have a mechanism for unveiling anonymity. If somebody is anonymous, so who are you going to punish? And if somebody is not anonymous, there are laws to deal with people who make reckless statements.
Perhaps that is why it is necessary for that law to come into play, because that law, hopefully, we haven't seen the content, but hopefully that law will be able to find out how to track down that so-called anonymous.
You don't need a law for that. You need a law to track somebody.
No.
You need your intelligence service. You need some mechanism for tracking, not law. When you have now gotten the person, you bring him before the normal court.
But why do you think, Prof, that 3 times, both the 6th, the 7th, 8th, and now the 9th Assembly, they've tried successively to see how they could introduce it. Why do they keep going down?
Because they are victims of this recklessness. Let me put it of sometimes it's courage to tell the world what these people are doing. They don't want the world to know how much they are earning, what cars they are buying. The orthodox media will not necessarily publish those things. So this is a personal fight against information management. It has nothing to do with national interest. So all the same, I was just listening to the little piece and the government said they should trust them. Who would trust the Nigerian government? There's skepticism about governance in Nigeria.
True.
And so you bring a law and you are saying we should trust you. What have you done with the laws that we gave to you? They have more in terms of abuse than conformity.
One of the things that, Prof, one of the things that the law, that according to the Minister of Information, hopes to target is what they call fake news and hate speech. Do you see it working?
With the proposed new law?
Yes.
They're all in the same bag. Because, first of all, as he has argued, there's distrust already. Yes. The 2 previous attempts to rein in social media ended in fiasco. Yes. People rose up against it and said, no, this is not the way we should go. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the state is much more too powerful as against civil society. Yes. And that power is sometimes, if not often, arbitrarily used. So, as he has argued, we can't just relax and go to sleep because they say, trust us on how to interpret and to use the law. It is being perceived as another big stick in the hand of the state to whip civil society. Because in any case, are we not throwing away the baby with the bathwater?
How?
Oh, well, social media, well, like he also argued, things like corruption are exposed on social media, and abuse of power and so on. Things that the conventional media cannot deal with.
Why can't the conventional media deal with that?
I think we should ask you.
I mean, you, because to the best of our knowledge,
it's proprietorial interests. Yeah. Proprietors are most proprietors are good with.
But you would also agree.
Yes, with the government.
You would also agree, sirs, that in the build-up following the botched Third Republic, what the conventional media did is public knowledge, and how that the media was able to stave off the impact, the repression of the military at the time. So most certainly the military the media has been doing something. Consequent, and as also you would remember that much of the corruption allegations and everything has also come out through the conventional media. So why would you say that?
Well, if we go back to the military, I mean, the heroism of the military in those days, the game has changed. Because, first of all, there are new players in the market, some of who are politicians and who are partisan one way or the other. And so, as he mentioned, the proprietary interest comes in. And the fact that the media itself will seem to have been co-opted into the power establishment. You know, we did a book last year in which we looked at the media in the Fourth Republic. And we said, are they watchdogs or have they been co-opted? I mean, and their feelings seem to be tilting on the side that there's been a lot of co-optation. Yeah. Even though some Channels is still doing a good job, I must say. I write for Punch. I believe Punch does a good job too, which is why I can maintain my column. Nobody has ever said, oh, why did you say this? Or we can't publish this to me. So there are media that stand out.
In that case,
yes,
you also know that you have a responsibility.
Yeah,
yes,
because
true.
Given the nature of the social media, which democratizes those editorial functions and those gatekeeping functions, it's quote unquote open to all comers. So is there a point in saying, well, should we leave it to all comers in the first place?
No, but the point we have both made, on this platform is that the conventional laws can deal with infractions.
Yes.
You do not need another law, which spreads this idea that there's another big stick coming, with which you are going to whip. Yes.
So what if they had changed their approach, and in the way they want to present the bill? Would that have helped in any way to let people say, okay, let's even listen, what is this about?
No, we'll look at the content. Yeah. In that case, we'll still look at the content. If it's packaged to look innocuous, but if the content is noxious or toxic...
No, they should go to the Ministry of Justice and get them to dust up their books and look at how they can cope with this emerging threat to people's rights. Now, what you do not want to do is to give the impression that you want to stifle free speech. In any case, if you look at what happens in more developed societies, Facebook is reined in once in a while. You have to stop this. Twitter, they are all giving
even
that.
Though there's a battle.
Yeah, gatekeeping. They are giving that gatekeeping functions. Whatever appears on your platform will be your responsibility. And so, we should avoid the impression. The impression is being given that this government or whoever is sponsoring this bill is intolerant of criticism. And when you say you will draw the line, where is the line? Where is the line? How do you draw the line? If you attack the National Assembly for, there's been something that is trending, that the Minister of Work said Nigerian rules are okay. And if you now, it has been abused severely. And I can testify to the horrible nature of Nigeria. We are traveling now and now from Lokoja to Boko. The most horrid roads you can find in Nigeria between two major cities.
But he has also said that, the comment is largely misquoted because really what he said...
Well, should try learn not to be misquoted. That is the people should learn not to be misquoted. If you are in government, one thing you should avoid is being misquoted. Just like my venue of the White House.
Yes, indeed.
All right, we'll go to break. I'll come back to this in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. The conversation continues about the proposed, or the bill, the social media bill. But, gentlemen, given the way the leadership of the National Assembly merged, because the 7th and the 8th, the way they merged was different from the way this leadership has emerged. And already we've seen some bills that have been passed. The president has signed bills in London. So what makes you think that this particular time, no matter how much civil society speak up against this bill, that the leadership of the assembly will listen if they are all determined to pass it, Prof?
Yeah, because they are not going to listen. So we should not be optimistic that they will.
No. Just looking at the issues before us.
Yes, I don't see that they will not pass it because it is their own self-interest to do so. They have the powers to do so. Ordinarily, they should listen in public sittings to the opinions of stakeholders. That should determine the direction of bills, not have a predetermined mindset. And they start throwing out all objections to the bill. That bill, from the commentaries of people, has no popular support.
So people shouldn't even bother waiting to look at the content of the bill. Just don't even bother.
Don't bother. No, we do not need Nigerian Senate. Should be excited about doing positive things. Why should we be so exuberant about negative policies, negative laws? Those are the things that we are very good at. Anything negative, Nigeria is good at it. Positive, fix roads, provide hospitals. It takes centuries, stories, excuses.
Could it be that, people are just apprehensive because, could it be people are just apprehensive for fear of the unknown?
Who are the people? Which people are apprehensive?
The people
is it
who
you
are
or I or
the social media bill? Those who are objecting the social media bill.
Oh, those who are objecting.
Yes.
Yes, why should we not be apprehensive? Socrates says a rational man bases his belief on the evidence.
When this debate came up several times too,
yes.
I remember the phone hacking incident in London, and then eventually the debate came about regulation, and they talked about whether or not there should be government regulation or self-regulation on the part of the practitioners. So should we have that here as well? Should we be talking about, well, no regulation at all, or sufficient laws are in place, then perhaps self-regulation should be improved upon rather than governments coming up with a new bill?
Well, the British have always held up self-regulation.
So what about us? What should we do?
Until recently. The British example is, under Theresa May, there was an attempt to also, quote unquote, they said they should prescribe a code, that there should be a code. That's what they said. They've not actually passed a bill. But all along, and the tradition in Britain has been, the media should regulate itself. It is mature enough to regulate itself. Now, what we should do here, in my opinion, is that once they throw it up for debate, we should begin to drum it up, the kind of views we're expressing here, that there's no need for another bill. In fact, somebody, I don't know whether it's true, somebody quoted the vice president as saying that there's no need for a social media bill. Yeah. And he should know, he's a senior lawyer. Yeah. And other senior lawyers have expressed the same opinion. Use the laws that are extant, yes, and use it to check the excesses. You don't need another law, especially in the face of the skepticism, that my senior colleague expressed, that people don't even trust the handlers of this whole process because of the trust gap between government and the people.
How did that trust gap come?
Oh, it came a long way back from the colonial days when the GRAs, Jebba now. Yeah. Jebba, the GRAs up the hill, and that's where the DOs and that's where they lived. Yes. And they came down to back down laws at the people and read riot acts. So government has always been up there, an epiphenomenon, hanging up there. It never really has been, had not really springing from the life of the people. So it came a long way back. Of course, the military deepened that problem. The military
now we're in the
carryover of the military. Yes,
now we're
yes,
for 20 years.
Yes, civilian autocracy. What have is a civilian autocracy?
Yeah, exactly.
Not a democracy yet.
So how then do we begin to reverse this trend? Because without that trust gap bridged, how can we have the kind of development we want?
Well, the trust gap will begin to be bridged when the people begin to see more performance. Yeah. When at campaign time they come and say, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when they are elected into office, they do at least 3 of the 5. Yeah. Then the trust gap will begin to be closed. But I'm afraid that's not the way we are going now. That's not the way we are going. Election after election has not resolved the governance problem of non-performance. Yes. We've had so many elections, they've come and gone, but the life of the people are getting more miserable.
How effective, sir, would you say that the social media space has been for holding government accountable?
Well, I'm not sure. That's the territory of Professor Olukotu. But I can tell you, I don't know, but I can tell you that the idea that there's a social media bill shows that it is pinching somebody. It is dealing with some people who don't want to be dealt with. So we must assume that social media bill is a response to the effectiveness of the social media.
Let me take you to your point. What do you?
Yes. What's the question?
How effective would you say social media has been? The social media space has been for holding government accountable.
What and all, it has been relatively effective, because a lot of things have come out on the social media that government itself has taken caution about, without even letting people know. They just take caution, or they mend defenses where they have to mend defenses. So the excesses do not outweigh or overweigh the creative and good things that social media is doing, not just in Nigeria but all over the world. You don't use an excess to judge an institution. It's just like saying because there are some judges who are corrupt, then the whole judiciary should be banned or thrown out or reined in.
Okay. So, well, should this be? Pardon me. Should there be an opportunity for the media to rally and then think, all right, rather than having this endless debate, because who knows if in the 10th Assembly they'll go come up with something again, should this one fail, shouldn't they then think about self-regulation? Let them have those meetings, have those sessions, whatever it is that they have to do, and ensure they perhaps have a second look at the laws. If there are lacunas or loopholes in there, especially with the new media, then you do something about self-regulation and not keep giving government opportunity to keep thinking there's a lacuna there that they want to regulate because perhaps nobody is speaking strong enough about self-regulation.
Yeah, I agree with you. But don't forget, there's institutionalized social media. Yeah. As my senior colleague said, there's institutionalized social media, and there's non-institutionalized social media, whom nobody really, they're like freeloaders, freewheelers. It's difficult to control them. But at least you can, as you say, you can go some direction into trying to rein them in and calling some of the people that who can at least talk to this, talk to that, to try to let them see reason in not allowing the excesses to be used as excuse, for throwing away the whole thing.
Now, the law, as you can see, is
the proposal,
the proposed law.
Because when they spoke about Singapore,
this
Singapore's zone was protection from
online
falsehood and manipulation bill. But we changed that online to internet. So, and perhaps maybe because online Singapore eventually they had a separate agency. Like a police of sorts that's going to go ahead and enforce some of those laws that they had to come up with. But now, some of this was, of course, yes, it was President Biden. We'll try to get Senator Mohammed Sani Musa several calls, but there's no response yet to see if we could shed some more light on what this is about and allay people's fears.
Yeah, the words used, sir, are falsehood and manipulation. To protection from internet falsehood and manipulation. Does that make any difference?
Does that not exist in our laws already? That's the question you must keep asking yourself. What is the need for this? Except to advertise that we are going to deal with you. That's all you are saying. You are advertising we are going to unleash the big stick on you. There are laws to get this in falsehood. People have been taken to court for falsehood without the social bill. I was reading about some person in Akwa Ibom State or Cross River was thrown into jail for publishing falsehood. There are laws for that.
Let's look at some of the highlights again.
Yes.
Because, for falsehood, the laws for sedition and libel are there. So that perhaps addresses it. But when they now say telcos that allow their networks to be used to disseminate false information could risk yet to be determined sanctions.
Yes.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this particular
yes.
How do telecoms, because if you pay for a service, is the telecom supposed to be spying on you in terms of the kind of messages you disseminate?
Yes.
One wonders how this is going to play itself out.
Yes.
Are they referring to MTN and Globe?
Yes.
For instance, being used to spread.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. So they also will be culpable according to this interpretation.
Because what one would have thought, I mean, you just saw Jack Dorsey there, the CEO of Twitter, because in some of the climes, what they're doing is just as your gentleman highlighted, they talk to Facebook, they talk to Twitter, they talk to those. Because some of these people don't consider themselves as publishing platforms.
Yes.
So they don't think that these laws apply to them in the first place. I'm not sure if that is what this is.
Telecommunication firms are not publishing platforms either.
No.
So
they are media. They are just media of conveying. They are conveyors. Media.
And they are not responsible for content.
Content.
No, they are not.
Because you get your WhatsApp, your Twitter on MTN or whichever channel.
Yes, yes.
When you subscribe, when you pay for your data and so on. So how do they become culpable? So what? Let us just quibble about the details of the law. I'm more interested in the general philosophy.
You see, that's the kind of omnibus thing that draws fear.
Yeah.
It addresses fear. Yet to be determined sanctions.
Maybe because the law is still in the works.
Yeah, but why you make it this open-ended?
Don't forget that.
Yeah, it raises apprehension.
The keyword false information is something that is debatable.
So in fact, the framing of the title of the bill itself raises more concerns.
But the lawyers can look at that. But I just think of the general philosophy of having a new law targeted at the new media. I think that we should avoid that. Or else we begin to create laws for everything that is new. So
on the one hand is this proposed bill to regulate the social media.
Yes.
On the other hand is the plan to tax businesses online.
Tax businesses online. That's administrative mechanism. And they are not the same thing.
But it can be used like a sleight of hand to victimize some kind of media.
Look at this. This one looks a little more specific.
Yeah.
Individuals who post false information on the internet, when found guilty, will pay a fine of 150,000 naira or sentenced to 3 months imprisonment.
Yes.
This is a little more specific.
Yeah, but there are laws that already deal with this. It's not new. I mean, there's nothing new about this.
Yes.
That is not already extant in the existing law.
But, gentlemen, do you think that the government seems to be... Because if those comments from the vice president credited to him that he's not sure if that's the way to go.
Yes.
And then there's been a renaming of the Ministry, I think, of Telecommunications. I think they also added digital economy.
Yeah.
So there's a huge component, huge economic gains that we can leverage on that platform.
Yes.
And then you're coming up with this. So how do we reconcile both?
Well, the economic aspect has been outstanding, especially in the Western countries. Which has been, that's why I don't think America, because most of these companies are American companies. Okay, so it's not likely that the U.S. will ever go that way. Apart from their own substructure of human rights and liberalism and so on. Yes, exactly. Which goes back to the First Amendment. So I don't even think anybody is looking at that. That at the time when you are looking for investment, you are seeking investment actively, and your economy is dipping and in a recession, that you also need to look at the economic implications of what you are trying to do.
The law has gone through first reading. Of course, the progress is...
They always go to first reading.
I'm just saying.
That would be the
Should it happen that the law sails through, what do you see happening?
Well, it's quite possible that the law will scale through, and then it goes into limbo. Nobody is enforcing it. There are many laws that are not enforced in Nigeria.
There's the likelihood of a cyber police.
Well, if we have a cyber police, I know that the idea is to pursue critics. That is the idea, and we are doing that very well already. We are doing that very effectively already, pursuing critics everywhere. So
it won't be in government interest if they have laws that are not enforceable. But the other part of that, as we wind down, says any corporate organization that refuses to block false information after the regulatory agency had alerted it will pay a fine ranging from 5 million to 10 million.
Okay.
So this is another area where people just wonder this, because there's been questions too about regulatory agencies. So this regulatory agency, that will be perhaps the Ministry of Information or the NCC. NCC for telecommunication companies. Then perhaps the Ministry
Information,
or is it NBC or NPC for electronic and print media? But how effective has NPC been in the first place?
Let's take it that this kind of law will still require a court judgment. You cannot have a regulatory agency, which is a government agency, imposing fines. Fines are supposed to be imposed by courts of law. So I hope they are aware of that somebody is going to pay 5 million to 10 million just because the agency says so. The agency must get the authority of the court to impose the fine.
What if it's already in the law?
Yeah, the law is supposed to be executed by the courts, not by the executive. That's why you have separation of powers.
Which is what broadcast firms, broadcast companies have been battling.
Yes.
True.
Everybody can just not come and say you are paying 50 million. You have to prove it in court that there's been an infraction against the law for which a fine must be paid, and the court will tell you go ahead and pay it.
So that you're suggesting that the NPC cannot be the enforcer of the law and then the regulator at the same time.
Yes.
He's been a judge in his own court.
His own court. You are a regulator. You have to point out to somebody that you are wrong.
Which is, as I say, in law, it's against the principle of natural
justice. Yes.
But, Prof, I mean, you also write a punch. NPC, how effective have they been?
NBC?
NPC, the Press Council, regulating print media.
They haven't been too effective, and that's because of our history, the way the media came up. Like you mentioned earlier, the guerrilla wars against the states and all of that, and nobody wanted to hear about regulation, because regulation was seen as part of the instruments to rein in the media anyway. So nobody respected those kind of things. Unlike Ghana, where this is really work. In Ghana, our neighbor, the National Media Commission, all those things, they actually work, But here, those things were squandered, they were scoffed at. And that's the danger of a bill like this. Once you don't have a buy-in from the civic public, then there's already an antecedental problem. Because even when if the law is passed as law, I'm sure there'll be a lot of challenges in court. I'm sure the Nigerian Guild of Editors, the NUJ, they'll be up in arms against it, and they'll go to court.
If the laws already exist to deal with these issues that have been raised by this new proposed, social media law, how come that law is not being enforced, or those laws are not?
People don't test it. That's what Falana said.
Yes.
Falana said he tested it, and the guy came to him and said, "Look, let's settle out of court."
Yes.
Because he knew if he went ahead and sued the guy would pay a hell lot of fines.
Yes.
So if you say that this thing is, you said the other time that it's the politicians trying to protect themselves. How come they are not testing this law?
Because it's costly, clumsy to test. If you're not careful, you will expose yourself beyond what the social media has done. Just like you remember Gadifa and Rotimi Williams.
Yes.
During the University of Ibadan case, this man went after Rotimi Williams to the point that the man almost withdrew from the case. Because he now went to a situation that was not envisaged. So if you come and say, they say those who come to equity must come with clean hands. If you say somebody has maligned you, you take him to court, and he begins to show other things that you have done to show that you don't deserve the protection of the court that you are seeking. So there's a reluctance. So they're looking for the easy way.
Okay.
Pass it on to an agency of government.
I already know your views on this. That's why they put a
patriotic Nigerians who want to see the country.
Well, what does patriotic? Does it mean that you have to agree with this to be patriotic?
You have to be on the side of government. That's their meaning. Patriotism means that you can see things differently.
Yes.
You can be part of a debate that is good for the country. If I say the minister is not doing his job, or I point out to an area in which he should be doing some remedial action, doesn't mean that I'm patriotic.
But that's different when you say that.
Yes.
It's different from you deliberately peddling falsehood and other people spreading that consistently. But as you say, look, you say, look, there are laws
Yes.
for anyone who says or publishes.
Yes, yes.
So, but libel and sedition, they can be sued on all of
You
this.
see, when you have special courts, you are moving to tyranny. Special courts tend to, because they will be doing the job. That's why you have traffic laws and you have your magistrate sitting in a bus. His job is not to do justice, but to collect money for government.
Okay.
So,
all right. So we as we said, we tried several times to get across to Senator Musa Mohammed. He's the mover of that bill, representing APC Niger East. So if perhaps there are any things more, if you like to say much more other than some of the highlights of this bill, well, he's always there for Nigerians to hear him out.
Yes.
You know, just as we have heard gentlemen here, we need to hear him and see what does he think. Does he have any additional messages to pass across? Because at the moment, almost everywhere you turn, nobody wants that social media bill. But we'll see what happens on the floor of the Senate. So we have to thank you. Ayolo Cotton is a professor of political science, as well as Professor Femi Otobanjo, public policy analyst, and also a professor of political science. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on this morning.
thank you for having us. Thank you.
Okay, but just before we go to break, we did talk about crude oil thefts, which some back pages are also talking about how that seems to be booming. We have a recent case in Lagos, these images you've seen here this morning. But we've got Comrade Williams Sakwara, who is the president of NUPENG. He joins us on the line this morning to get his perspectives just before we wrap this up. Comrade, thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, those tankers that eyewitnesses say they saw lift or escape, 7 of them, as a matter of fact, with those petroleum products, had NUPENG, should I say imprimatur, on them. Now, have you heard about that? I mean, is NUPENG in any way involved in this? And what do you do when trucks that are involved or tankers that are involved in crude oil theft have got NUPENG, some sort of sticker or ID on them, which leaves people to think maybe it's business as usual? How do you deal with that?
Well, good morning, Chamberlain. Yes, first of all, we are aware of that incident you are just referring to. And, of course, we have also tried to find out what went wrong there. And obviously, the tanker involved and the driver involved are no way related to NUPENG. You know, NUPENG is an oil and gas workers, and we don't indulge in vandalism and criminality. So obviously, those involving in oil theft are criminals, and they are also vandals. So we, on our part, have found out too that over time we'll find some persons, trying to fake our stickers, and carry our fake ID cards. This, the leadership, is trying to do something about. Very soon we'll be coming up with new stickers that we clearly state our membership, that are involved in this, in any legal activity, but not these persons that are going about carrying out illegal activities.
All right, but other than that, Comrade, just quickly before we go, in what other way is NUPENG contributing to stem this tide? Because this has been going on for years.
Well, one thing we started doing is we've gone on a campaign, and sensitization among our members, and also to tell them how they can distance themselves from, activities of these vandals. And like I said again, we're coming up with a structure, that will identify our members clearly, so that the public can know, fake members, of the union, that are using our name to carry out criminal activities.
William Sakwara, President of NUPENG, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
All right. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.